Before pharmacies, before pills, before the industrialization of health, for 99% of human history, your survival didn't depend on a prescription, it depended on your biological intelligence. We've been told that ancient life was short and brutal, but the records tell a different story. Our ancestors built empires, crossed oceans, and survived ice ages without a single synthetic chemical. They didn't have alternative medicine, they had original medicine. Today, we live in a world of caloric abundance and nutritional famine. We are overfed, undernourished, and constantly searching for a fix for a body we've forgotten how to read. But your body isn't broken. It's just starving for the right signals. Ancient survival foods were those signals. These weren't just meals, they were biological cheat codes. They were weapons that killed pathogens on contact. They were shields that protected the heart and brain under extreme stress. They were fuel that allowed the human machine to run for days without a crash. From the oxygen-starved peaks of Tibet to the warrior camps of feudal Japan, these 15 forgotten foods reprogrammed human health at a cellular level. We are about to open the forbidden archives of human resilience. This isn't about looking back, it's about remembering how to survive the future. Let's begin one. Garlic, the warrior's strategic resource. In the modern kitchen, garlic is a condiment. In the ancient world, it was a weapon of mass preservation. To understand its power, we must look at the shadows of the Great Pyramids. Historical papyrus records indicate that when the supply of garlic was interrupted, work stopped. This wasn't a culinary preference, it was a medical necessity. Thousands of laborers lived in cramped, unhygienic conditions under a scorching sun. In such environments, a single respiratory infection or a localized outbreak of dysentery would have been a death sentence for the project. Garlic was the pharaoh's insurance policy against the collapse of his empire. The mechanism of this protection is a masterclass in plant evolution. Within the garlic bulb, two substances sit in separate compartments, an enzyme called a lionase and a compound called a lion. As long as the bulb is intact, nothing happens. But the moment a predator or a human crushes the cell walls, these two substances collide to create allicin. This is a volatile, sulfur-rich defense chemical designed to kill soil pathogens on contact. When we consume it correctly, this plant defense becomes our internal defense. Modern molecular biology confirms that allicin penetrates the cell membranes of bacteria, disrupting their ability to produce energy and replicate. It is a broad-spectrum antimicrobial that doesn't create the superbugs associated with modern pharmaceuticals. However, the modern world has lost the technique of its use. If you throw chopped garlic immediately into a hot pan, you destroy the enzyme before allicin can even form. The ancients knew better. They crushed it, they waited, and they consumed it raw or minimally processed. They understood that the burn of the garlic was the biological signature of its potency. 2. Honey, the immortal biome. Imagine an archaeologist entering a tomb sealed for 3 millennia. Among the gold, they find a jar of honey. It is still liquid, still golden, and chemically indistinguishable from honey produced yesterday. This is the only food on earth that is truly immortal. In survival contexts, honey was the liquid bandage, a tool so effective that it is still used today in advanced wound care clinics for infections that antibiotics cannot touch. The secret of honey is its low water content and its high acidity, which creates an environment where no bacteria can breathe. But the real magic happens through osmotic pressure. Honey is so dense in sugar that it literally pulls the moisture out of invading microbes, causing them to collapse and die through dehydration. Furthermore, bees introduce an enzyme called glucose oxidase. When honey is applied to a wound, it reacts with the body's fluids to slowly release microdoses of hydrogen peroxide. It is a time-release natural disinfectant that promotes tissue regeneration without the caustic damage of synthetic chemicals. To our ancestors, a beehive wasn't just a source of sweetness, it was a mobile field hospital. But today, the commercial honey found in most stores has been ultra-filtered and pasteurized, stripped of the pollen and enzymes that make it medicinal. We have traded a biological miracle for a flavored syrup. 3. Onions, the architecture of resilience. If garlic was the sword, the onion was the armor. Onions were the systemic regulators of the ancient world. They are the most concentrated dietary source of quercetin, a flavonoid that acts as a master switch for the human immune system. In a world before pharmacies, chronic inflammation was a silent killer that accelerated the aging of the heart and the breakdown of the lungs. The daily consumption of onions provided a constant buffer against this decay. Quercetin doesn't just lower inflammation, it stabilizes mast cells, preventing the oversecretion of histamines and protecting the respiratory tract from environmental triggers. More importantly, onions are rich in organosulfur compounds that serve as the precursors for glutathione, the master antioxidant. In survival scenarios where the body is pushed to its limits by cold, hunger, and physical exertion, the cells produce a massive amount of oxidative trash. Without the sulfur from onions to fuel the production of glutathione, the body would literally rust from the inside out. The ancients didn't need to understand molecular pathways to see the result. Those who ate onions had clearer skin, stronger lungs, and the ability to recover from exhaustion faster than those who didn't. 4. Pemmican, the technology of endurance. The indigenous peoples of the North American plains developed what remains the most sophisticated survival ration ever conceived: pemmican. This was not a snack. It was a high-calorie survival technology. By combining lean, wind-dried meat with rendered tallow fat and antioxidant-rich berries, they created a food that was energy-dense, lightweight, and shelf-stable for decades without refrigeration. The brilliance of pemmican lies in its understanding of human metabolism. Modern diets rely on glucose, a fast-burning fuel that leads to insulin spikes and subsequent crashes. In a survival situation, a crash can be fatal. Pemmican forced the body to run on fat adaptation. Fat provides 9 calories per gram, compared to the 4 calories provided by carbohydrates. By relying on pemmican, a hunter or explorer could maintain a steady, high-output energy state for 18 hours without a single fluctuation in blood sugar. It provided the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K essential for bone density and hormonal health. This was the biological battery that allowed humans to navigate the most brutal winters and cross entire continents on foot. 5. Tea Sampa, the metabolic anchor of the Himalaya Shai on the Tibetan plateau. Where oxygen is scarce and the temperature regularly drops below zero, the survival of an entire culture depends on tea sampa. This is roasted barley flour, usually mixed with tea and yak butter. While modern grains like wheat have been bred for high gluten and rapid sugar release, barley remains a slow-burn carbohydrate. Champa provides a constant, low-level release of glucose into the bloodstream, which is critical at high altitudes. When the heart and lungs are already under the extreme stress of low oxygen, the body cannot afford the systemic inflammation caused by insulin spikes. Sampa allowed the monks and nomads to maintain cognitive clarity and physical warmth in environments where most humans would succumb to fatigue within hours. It is a lesson in metabolic stability. The Tibetans didn't eat for pleasure or stimulation. They ate to provide their cells with a reliable, unwavering anchor against the elements. 6. Burdock root. The systemic janitor in the wild, burdock root, known as gobo in Japan, is often dismissed as a stubborn weed. In the survival archive, it is the ultimate purifier. When you are living in a survival state, your liver and kidneys are under constant pressure from environmental toxins and the metabolic byproducts of physical stress. Burdock root is the internal janitor. It is loaded with inulin, a specific type of prebiotic fiber that the human body cannot digest, but which serves as the primary fuel for the army of beneficial bacteria in your gut. By feeding these microbes, burdock ensures that the immune system stays vigilant. Furthermore, burdock contains polyacetylene compounds that have been shown to fight fungal and bacterial infections from within. In ancient survival systems, you didn't just eat to gain energy. You ate to clear the exhaust of your metabolism. Burdock was the filter that ensured the human machine didn't seize up under the weight of its own waste. 7. Fermentation, the ancestors' biological upgrade. Before the invention of the refrigerator, fermentation was the only line of defense against starvation. Every major civilization, from the Vikings with their fermented fish to the Koreans with their kimchi, discovered that by allowing certain bacteria to pre-digest their food, They could create something far more powerful than the original ingredient. During fermentation, bacteria break down complex proteins and carbohydrates, releasing vitamins that were previously locked away. They produce lactic acid, which not only preserves the food but also creates a probiotic flood for the human gut. Our ancestors understood that your gut is the headquarters of your resilience. A stagnant gut led to a stagnant mind. By seeding their digestive tracts with living cultures, they were reinforcing the barrier between their internal organs and the outside world. In a survival situation, your ability to extract every micromilligram of nutrition from a small amount of food was the ultimate competitive advantage. Fermentation was the biological upgrade that allowed humans to extract life from stone. 8. Umeboshi, the samurai's biological reset. In the feudal era of Japan, amidst the brutal civil wars that forged the nation, samurai warriors carried a secret weapon in their medicine pouches, not a blade, but a small, shriveled fruit. This was umeboshi, the fermented salt plum. To the uninitiated, it is an assault on the senses, intensely salty and aggressively sour. But to the warrior, it was a biological necessity. Umeboshi is arguably the most alkalizing food on the planet, a fact that modern science only recently validated through the study of blood pH. When a human is pushed to the point of absolute physical exhaustion, whether on a battlefield or a modern marathon, the blood becomes acidic. This metabolic acidosis leads to muscle failure, excruciating cramps, and a paralyzing mental fog. In this state, your body is literally breaking down under its own waste. A single umeboshi plum could instantly shift the internal chemistry. It stimulates the liver to flush out lactic acid and neutralizes microbial toxins in the digestive tract. It was the original instant recovery tool, allowing men to return to the fray or continue a trek through the mountains when their bodies were screaming to collapse. Beyond its alkalizing power, umeboshi contains citric acid levels that are 2 to 3 times higher than those found in lemons, facilitating the Krebs cycle, the very engine of cellular energy production. To the ancients, umeboshi was a biological reset button that kept the spirit sharp when the flesh was weak. 9. Pu-er-te, the systemic janitor deep in the mist-covered mountains of the Yunnan province, a unique biological process takes place. Unlike green tea, which is prized for its youth and freshness, pu-er is prized for its maturity and fermentation. For centuries, these tea leaves were pressed into cakes and transported along the grueling tea horse road. During this journey, the tea would naturally ferment, a process that continues for years, sometimes decades. In ancient survival systems, pu-er was utilized as a biological janitor. In environments where high-fat diets were necessary for survival, such as the consumption of pemmican or yak butter, the human body eventually faces the risk of stagnation. Excess lipids can clog the arteries and slow the metabolism. Pu-er acts as a regulator. It contains unique microorganisms and natural statin-like compounds that assist the body in breaking down fats and regulating cholesterol. It ensures that the engine of the body doesn't get gummed up with metabolic debris. It was the daily ritual that kept the blood moving and the digestive fire burning, even in the coldest, most sedentary winter months. It transformed a simple drink into a sophisticated filtration system for the human cardiovascular network. Number 10. Medicinal mushrooms, the immune upgrade reishi, lion's mane, and chaga. In the ancient texts of the East, these were never categorized alongside common vegetables. They were spirit medicine, or the mushroom of immortality. Our ancestors understood a fundamental truth that modern immunology is only now beginning to grasp. These fungi do not act as simple stimulants. They are biological modulators. At the molecular level, these mushrooms contain complex polysaccharides called beta-glucans. When you consume them, these molecules interact with the receptors on your immune cells, essentially training them. They don't force the immune system to work harder, which could lead to dangerous overinflammation. Instead, they teach it to work smarter. They allow the body to recognize viral and bacterial threats faster while ignoring harmless distractions. In a survival situation, an overactive immune system, autoimmunity, is just as lethal as a weak one. Medicinal mushrooms provided the crucial middle ground, ensuring that the body's defenses remained razor-sharp but never erratic. They were the intelligence officers of the human immune system. 11. Pine pollen, the hormonal signal. In the spring, ancient cultures would gather the golden dust that falls in clouds from the pine forests. This was not a mere curiosity, it was a potent hormonal support system. Pine pollen is one of nature's most concentrated sources of phytoandrogens, natural plant steroids that mirror human hormones like testosterone. In a high-stress survival environment, hormonal collapse is a silent, invisible killer. Constant stress and caloric restriction send cortisol levels through the roof, a process that literally melts muscle mass and drains the psychological will to live. Pine pollen was used to restore the hormonal signal. It provided the raw bioactive materials to keep the endocrine system resilient, maintaining bone density, muscle mass, and mental drive. It wasn't about bulking up in the modern sense. It was about hormonal survival. It allowed the body to remain in an anabolic, or building, state even when the external environment was trying to tear it down. It was the spark that kept the internal fire from going out. 12. Goji berries, the brains for Tressen, the high-altitude, oxygen-deprived regions of Ningxia and Tibet. The bright red goji berry was revered as more than just a sweet treat. It was the foundation of neuroprotection. When the body is under extreme physical duress, the brain is often the first organ to suffer from oxidative damage. In a survival scenario, this is the ultimate danger. Focus fades, memory slips, and decision-making becomes sluggish. One bad decision in the wild is a death sentence. Goji berries are packed with unique Lycium barbarum polysaccharides that protect brain cells from destruction and support the natural production of growth hormone. They acted as a metabolic buffer for the nervous system, ensuring that even when the body was physically exhausted, the mind remained clear and the vision remained sharp. They were the food of the seers and the longest-lived elders, because the ancients knew that survival is a mental game long before it is a physical one. They kept the fortress of the mind secure while the storm raged outside. Number 13. Bani Imo, the DNA Ancharon, the island of Okinawa. Survival wasn't about a single winter, it was about surviving a century. The dietary foundation of the world's longest-lived people was the Bani Imo, a deep purple sweet potato. Packed with anthocyanins in concentrations far higher than blueberries, this root acted as a biological anchor. In survival conditions, these compounds mitigate DNA damage from oxidative stress and toxins. Bani Imo provided the slow-release fuel that kept cardiovascular systems elastic and cognitive functions intact well into old age. It proved that the most powerful medicine isn't a rare herb, but the consistent, humble foundation of your daily calories. 14. Bone broth, the collagen matrix. Our ancestors never wasted a single part of the animal. They cracked the bones and simmered them for days. This wasn't a choice, it was a survival necessity. Bone broth is a concentrated extraction of collagen, glycine, and minerals, the literal building blocks of the human structure. In a world of high physical impact, your joints, tendons, and gut lining are under constant repair. Glycine is essential for liver detoxification and maintaining the integrity of the intestinal wall. This liquid gold was the internal glue that held the human machine together, ensuring joints didn't fail at 40 and the immune system stayed resilient through the harshest winters. 15. Olive oil, the liquid longevity. In the Mediterranean, olive oil was liquid gold, used as currency and medicine alike. Rich in polyphenols, it provided the high-level protection needed for long-term survival. One compound, oleocanthal, mimics the anti-inflammatory effects of ibuprofen without the systemic toxicity. It protects arteries from calcification and the brain from cognitive decline. To the ancients, olive oil was the daily oiling of the biological machine. It ensured blood stayed fluid and cells remained protected against the rust of aging. It is the final piece of the survival puzzle, the consistent fat that protects the heart long after the crisis has passed. The Forbidden Archives reveal a singular truth. Survival was never about one miracle food, it was about the system. Modern medicine treats the body as a collection of parts to be fixed. The ancient survival system treated it as an ecosystem to be signaled. These 15 foods were the signals. They provided protection, stable fuel, hormonal balance, and structural recovery. Your biology has not changed in 40,000 years. You have the same requirements for resilience as the pyramid builders and Himalayan monks. The forgotten medicine isn't a mystery. It's a choice to stop seeking chemical solutions for biological problems. Your body is a masterpiece of evolution waiting for the right inputs. Incorporate the broth, find the real honey, crush the garlic. In an increasingly fragile world, your health is your only true survival tool. Remember the system, protect the machine. Survive. This journey was the map. Now you must navigate. If you value truth over trends, help this knowledge spread by hitting like. Subscribe for our next investigation into the rituals that allowed ancient cultures to outlive the modern world. Comment "survive" below and tell me, which of these 15 cheat codes are you using first? The conversation ends here, but your transformation starts now. Stay sharp, stay resilient. See you in the next one.